Pete Stanley, the London banjo player, never wore fingerpicks in his life. He always played with nails. Once again then, so what's right and what's wrong? However, to compromise on that, I moved down to 13th thou. When you put them on for the first month, year, do not put them on so that the actual blade is directly in line with the pad of your finger. That's a mistake that everybody makes. They don't go on like that, and I'll show you why. Because when you pick your instrument up, your hand approaches the strings at 45 degrees. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. Not like that. So you're paramountly going to smack the pick with the side and not the pad. So the pick must go on, and I'm going to over accent this up at an angle. Can you see that? See how I've shaped that? So that when my hand comes down, the blade is actually straight in line with the string. You can shape them fairly easy to do that, and it's most important because you get such a great attack from a flat blade rather than a slightly side-on blade.
So Joe, you're saying you're actually twisting the pick?
Yes,
you're bending the pair of pliers.
No. Just twist it and then reshape the bit that goes around your finger to suit. In fact, the best thing to do is buy 2 new ones that you can actually do it from fresh with. Yeah. Because the other ones have got memory in them that you've been using, and they buckle and all sorts of things. That's the great thing to do. Now, when I say, I overemphasise that was visually for you to see that. There's not a lot in it, but if you look very closely at mine, you can actually see that they're offset from the centre of my fingers towards my left. You're right. Because my hand is going to, when I show you how to bridge properly, your fingers will be lying at this sort of junction. So that's something to bear in mind if you want to get nice, tuneful attack from your string, all right? So 13s, 18s are a godsend. 20s to 25s, you've got no feel in your hand whatsoever. You're trying to smack one piece of metal against another one. So you tend to see, I know people that are playing with heavy picks because the hand is doing this, it's spidering everywhere because of this weight that's on them. So that's up to you, of course, that's up to you. But I would go for the 18th thou. I'd like to say drop to 13. I've got an overactive banjo as well as thyroid, so it does my head in. So I get lighter picks and I can play without the need for a mute in the house. Because I'm closer to wearing just nothing. And yet I'm actually using the pick, so my fingers are constantly in practice with them being on. Does all that make sense? That leads us on to the next weapon, the thumb pick. I'll give you some ideas on thumb picks. Here's a beaut, look at that. This has come out of some sea creature, I think. It's called the Perfect Touch thumb pick, and I love it to bits. It's too active for this. I don't know what it's called, adrenaline I think it's called, as in adrenaline, I don't know. And you can buy them from Eagle Music. And the one thing that they are good at is this part here goes right up inside your thumb, so it's not on the cuticles at all, so you don't get that awful thing. And of course it's got such a sharp tone to it that if you've got a banjo in the cheaper bracket that's a bit thuddy, or you've got a head on it which is too thick and you don't really want to change it, this will cure that problem. It's called the Perfect Touch thumb pick, and it will lighten up your playing as far as tone's concerned. I don't know if I'll be able to show it on this, but I'll try. Take that off, and then put the Perfect Touch on. Hear it? Sorry. So, thumb picks do make a difference. One extreme to the other. I always use Chin Dunlop Tortex thumb picks, or the plastic ones that look like tortoiseshell, in a large. The thing about the terminology small, large and medium is also misconstrued. It has nothing to do with how it bends around your thumb or how big your thumb is, it's the size of the blade. So remember that. So if you get a large thumb pick, it's probably got a long, big, thick blade on it. If you get a small one, it's more akin to this sort of shape, thinner. Alright. For years I just used them and they were okay, but as I became older and less accurate, I was missing the thumb pick quite a bit and catching the string underneath the hook of it at the back. So my good friend Bill Forster, who was suffering with the same thing, said to me, try the Zuki thumb pick. This is a Zuki thumb pick, and it has, the shaft is offset. I don't know if anybody can see that. It's not straight shaft. It's bent round at an angle from the rest of the clamp, as it were. And you can get that angle to be different, you know, sharper, thinner. And what a difference it's made to me, because I've got the thick blade, and it's longer, and because my hand's not so accurate, it's lying again flat on the string because of this offset that's on it. So these are options for you to look at to get the tone out of your banjo. Okay, so far? So you see the thumb and finger picks are quite important. And if you are a house player, which I mostly am these days, unless the old grey dogs is out, I don't go to a lot of sessions and things, then the lighter finger pick affords you the comfort of playing at home without disturbing the neighbour, but with keeping in practice with the picks being on. That's a great thing. So while we're on the subject of this hand, let's stay with it for now. Okay.
Oh, you run this?
See you later.
Yeah, okay.
Every year's the same. Goon show. He's a goon. He's a guitarist. So now, the hand is very important to lie the hand on properly. I can't tell you that it's not. I've seen all sorts of things. People lay the palm of the hand back on the bridge. There's lazy hands. There's overactive hands, you know. But basically, at least one of the two fingers on the head, please, at least. You cannot accurately three-finger a banjo, 16 notes a second or whatever it is, a minute or a bar, if you're not clamped somewhere. It's just not accurate. So you need to get one or two fingers on the head. Roughly, find a hot spot of the banjo between here and here. And by that I mean, all banjos will have that one spot where it plays best of all. You can play hard at the bridge, a la Ralph Stanley, or you can play soft at the bridge, a la Bella Fleck and Kruger. Or you can find the hot spot in the middle, where it plays everywhere, and it's keeping its tone. Once you've found that, then clamp them there all the time in that one hot spot, okay? Get used to your hand being in the same position. And we form a bridge between this armrest and the head, rather like that, as it were. Okay? Almost like holding a cricket ball, in fact. Because we want to have the minimal contact on the head that we can have. Alright, gentlemen? Laying this back so that it's lazily on the bridge, even if it's behind the bridge, will affect your playing as you get advanced. Because the single string stuff and everything you want to do up here won't come because the hand will lock and get cramped up. So stick with that, form this bridge from this point here, halfway along my arm, on there, over she comes, down onto the head. See that? Whack. Then relax the fingers down and they'll just go right to the string. So you've just alleviated a lot of problems here now because you're not looking for the string. Once you get used to it, you needn't look, because you're in the right place. So with the finger picks and the thumb pick being on in the right position, and us having found the hot spot for our banjo, we got this pretty well locked down. It's just practice then. Anybody tells you, oh, I don't do that, I do this, or my mate from London who's been playing 50 years does that, that's fine for that guy. But if you want to play good scrubs like you were doing earlier up the neck, you need to lock that in place. Because another thing about the banjo nobody realises, as you go up the neck, it becomes difficult to pick it. Not that anything's changed other than the length of the string. And as mandolin players will tell you, they're so short that you've got to back the hell out of them to get anything out. And while you're doing that, you become messy. You hear that all the time. But if you're locked down tight, then you're going to hit it nice. It's important then for up the neck playing. So we've got this locked down, everything's pretty good. We've talked about the banjo in its terms of this hand. Now we've got to look at the head on a banjo. A lot of people buy a banjo because they like the sound of it. A lot of people buy a banjo without even thinking that they've never listened to a bluegrass tune in their lives, let alone know what it's all about, but they like the sound of it. Dueling banjos, I'm going to get one of them. I did it, we all did it. And then when they get it home and realise that they've got to go through an apprenticeship of tunes that they've never even heard or even probably like, they're like clarinets at girls' schools. A lot of them end up in lofts. I bet there's a clarinet in half the lofts in the UK. Banjos too, probably. And your banjo doesn't quite sound like the one on the record. That's true. Because the one on the records had £8,000 worth of electronic adjustment given to it by the sound engineer. Alright? You can talk to Greg Deering about that. Greg Deering's a great man at selling you a banjo for a lot of money with the tone that you've heard. He very quickly and astutely realised that if he could produce on the banjo the sound that you were listening to on your CD, he'd be quids in. And that's what he's done. Okay? But your lesser model might be a bit muffled. And you can improve that, because normally they come with a head on it called a Remo, Weather King head. Okay? Most banjos have them on, and a lot of banjo manufacturers use them. They are quite thick with white spray, plastic spray, with bits, tiny little bits of grit in it to emulate the previous generation of goat skin. Okay? And they make you have this lovely mark as you get, everybody likes to see that. But they can detract from a cheaper banjo which is already struggling in its build to give you any tone at all. So it's something to consider is getting a thinner head for a brighter sound. Another variable then that is important. Okie dokie. Most heads come in various thicknesses and it's a job to know what to ask for. But really, if you see the word smooth, whether it's white or you want a black one or a clear one, you can't go wrong. Or whether it's a 5-star Deering or a Remo, they all do them. If you see one called, what's the thick one called? I don't know, there's a thick one in there that they use, those are banjos use.
5-star?
Yeah, it looks like a goat skin, it's as thick as anything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that'll just make
Fibre,
the
something fibre.
Yeah, it won't work.
Fibre skin.
It won't work. Yeah, they're terrible. But that's another variable for you guys to consider in your banjo tone and makeup. Alright, moving firmly along then, before we come to the banjo, this hand is fairly easy on the 5-string banjo. You're going, what? But it is. It really is. Because we have got a harmonically tuned instrument. Does anybody know what that means? Yeah. It means that the instrument is already tuned to a chordal sound. Now, if Dan was to play his guitar, would you, Dan, without putting the left hand down, his machine is discordal. It's just tense and it means nothing. He has to put 3 fingers down to get in G, to get what we've got with no fingers down. So we're in front. We're harmonically tuned, alright? That means that you are playing predominantly lead over a chord like this. This is G, as you know, it's a G banjo. If I play a lick over it, I'm still in G, but I'm not chording G, I'm just going. Lucky, not a lot in that hand then, is there really? So you can slide the 4th string, 3rd, 2nd, pretty easily. It's a great thing to understand that because people get tied up thinking, oh my God, can't get this at all. So step back, learn that first tune, which is, who was Cripple Creek?
Cripple Creek, it's got to be.
Cripple Creek carries a stigma, doesn't it? It really does. When you're in the front room and you get it for the first time, you go, yes. And then for the rest of your life, it's still your best tune. You know, funny that, isn't it? The great thing about Cripple Creek is it does get you going around three chords. This one, which is G, of course, it enters into the realms of C, and it enters into the realms of D7 I use. Now, these chords are called chord because they are made up of more than one tone or one string tone or one tone on the accordion, whatever. Usually called a triad, made up of 3 notes. And they become harmonic, remember that word, in their own right. So to get us to be able to do this triad of notes, I'll put 3 fingers down on the banjo where I'm supposed to produce the C chord. And it's harmonic again, but in a different tone. That's all you need to know for now, because that's very deep and I could spend hours on it. But Cripple Creek introduces you to that. So the first tune you're going to learn is Cripple Creek. Why? Because it teaches you to slide the banjo and do 2 roll patterns. The alternating thumb and the forward-backward roll, which are predominantly for you to learn. I'll cover them in a minute. But basically, it helps this hand become accurate, our old friend here, Mr. Difficult, simply by giving it some simple exercises like... Right? We've all done this, haven't we, yeah? Did you hear that, love? We've all done it. Right, but the aim is to get them to work together, not fast, but as in... Okay, that's why Cripple Creek's important. And I'll tell you something, this lick here is used in a million bluegrass tunes. And so is this. So you best learn it, because those licks are going to appear everywhere, as is this one. Oh. There's the ending. You've heard it before, but it's out of Cripple Creek. So that's why we do this apprenticeship. I hope this has given you a bit more understanding why this is all laid out as it is. Okay, so now everything's going really good. We've got no teacher. You're lucky if you have. Use the YouTubes, they're pretty good. Find a guy that suits you, there's millions of them on there, you know, and find somebody, whether it's Ross Nickerson, whoever you're into, and stick with him. If not, use one book. So who is learning to play the banjo from a book? Yeah? And which book are you using?
Janet Davis is the...
Janet Davis, what one?
Teach Yourself Banjo is
Right.
the basic one.
Anybody got anything different?
Got the old Scruggs.
Old Scruggs book?
Dennis Kaplinger.
Yes, lovely book. Right, okay, they're good books, but I'm going to go with this gentleman. I'll tell you why.
Yeah, I've got that one as well.
Because it's the best Dennis Kaplinger book, takes you right through what I'm talking about as to how much tone you get out of the front. It's like an archer. The more draw he's got on his bow, then the more response he's going to have from the string or the twine or whatever it's called overall. So if you have your tailpiece coming, that's my bridge, straight on to meet the bridge, then you have not really built any resistance up. But if you lower it down like that, so that you formed a V between the bridge back and the tailpiece, then the tension at the front end is obviously going to be greater. And that's why tailpieces come with a little screw on the back, so that you can raise or lower them. Alright? So, you know, most people in my generation of the Courage and the Tailpiece clan that are, or the Presto Gibson clan, used to try and get the front end right down onto the neck, onto the skin, so it was a Ritzler paper between them. Years later now that's become a fallacy, and you can see mine actually points slightly upwards towards the bridge. Okay. I leave that entirely up to you, but if you've got a cheaper banjo with less tone, it may be a way to help you get a brighter tone out of it, is to screw that tailpiece down a bit, give it more tension, and that will cut through the thicker skin and the less quality tone ring that you've got. Okie dokie.
Joe, does that affect the action?
No, it doesn't really. What it does do is it puts more tension on the bridge, so it can by default affect the action by pushing the bridge into the head a little bit more. That's the only way I can see that happening. While we're on the subject of that, the head should be roughly... You can buy drum dials and all sorts of things. Goodness me. I don't know where you go with all this, to be honest with you. Right. The head, where the bridge is, you should be able to get about 1/8 of an inch without pushing the thumb right through it. Right? Anything less than 1/8 of an inch is either going to take the tone away or make it sharper. brisker. Anything more than 1/8 of an inch will make it thuddy and also lower the action. Because if you imagine, if you turn this up to concert pitch, this bridge is pushing into the head. So this string will go down with it, look, won't it? So if you have got a buzz on your banjo and you're fishing around with coordinator rods, and it might not be that at all. It might be just to get your drunkie out and tighten your head up a little bit, and up come the strings. You must always try and keep this rod that's inside the banjo in what's known as neutral. You must never ever adjust your action by putting an Allen key in there and tightening it. Never. Because when you put that cover back on, you've left that wood under tension. Right? Because all that's doing inside there is bending, and it's forcing the wood to go with it. And when it drops onto the floor, what will happen? The wood will snap on the neck. So you must always have this in neutral. It is there just underneath the fingerboard to help support the weight of the banjo and the neck to remain straight. To adjust the action, you use the 2 coordinator rods that lie inside, or the 1 coordinator rod, depending on what you've got. And the way they work is simple: push me, pull you. 2 coordinator rods like that. There's the banjo heel, okay? So you imagine that surround bit, the neck goes up there. These 2 rods come through and they sit there like that, screwed into the neck. And if I force this one back out, it's going to tip the neck forwards. Can you see that? And if I force this one back out, it's going to do the reverse. So that's how you do it, very lightly. Which is why on your coordinator rods inside the head, there are 2 holes halfway along it. So that you can put an Allen key in them and just adjust it. Never use the truss rod. Those of you that have, just leave it now. But that's not there to adjust the action at all. That's there to take warps out of your neck, should you get a warp. So you've got 2 coordinator rods, or 1 inside here, and that's what bolts the neck onto the tub. Collectively, all of this is called the tub, right guys? You know that? This is called the neck. This is called the resonator. It's not overly important in terms of tone, despite what people tell you. You can spend £2,000 on getting a resonator made. It will sound just as good as the one you bought out of the factory with the banjo for 400 quid. Its job is to project the sound back out of the sound holes on the flange, solely to try and make it louder compared to the open back banjo. Same as the dobro guitar, which was originally developed to make it louder than a standard guitar, to be able to be played in bars in America. So, if you've got an open back banjo, don't worry so much about it. Oh, they've all got these bloody closed back banjo, mine must be wrong. It isn't wrong, okay? If you bought a Deering good time banjo, they are very good with tone, and they don't have a back on them. Some do. I don't notice a difference between them, to be honest with you. But if you have got a resonator on it, then that's what it's for, okay? Just to project the sound back out. Now, the tone ring that sits inside the banjo, the head rests on that, and the development of the tone ring in 5-string banjos is an ongoing quest, even today. People try to find these, I don't know, if you add a little bit of dead sparrow foot to it, the tone is phenomenal. Oh, I make mine out of black wood, oh dear, that has been underwater for 5,000 years and ate by a dinosaur. You've heard it all, haven't you? And that banjo's only 15 grand, but it's got that tone ring in it. Puts a little bump to me, to be honest with you. I say that, and I've got one of the most expensive tone rings you can have, because I like the sound of the banjo the man who owns this tone ring makes. So I play his tunes a lot. But that's why I got one, to try and get a banjo that has roughly same monicum of sound as his. But in general parlance, the tone ring is usually a combination of brass and bronze. You know, they'll say, oh, it's a 100% brass tone ring. No, it isn't. It's got bronze in it. Okay? You're buying a banjo for £400 with a brass tone ring in, that's going to cost you 500 quid to make? No. But they all sound pretty good today, all of them. And you can buy them off the shelf if you're not happy with yours, from companies in New York or anywhere really, in the UK now. But the tone ring banjos, compared to an open back banjo which perhaps doesn't have a tone ring in it, is a big gun in the bluegrass world. Because bluegrass banjo is a totally different beast to the open back banjo. This banjo has been built to upset millions of people, usually in the same band as you're in. And the development of it has been perfect in my case for that. The tone ring upsets lots of people. Neighbours, it's a good one for that. 10:30 at night, Joe, how much longer are you going to play that bloody thing, you know? But they are important that you have one. Stelling, great tone ring, very bright, you know. D-ring, he uses off the shelf, he calls his an 06 tone ring as if he developed it in 2006. Which is good, I guess he did really. I don't know what he's added to it that's different from the ones before 2006, but it's good to have a tone ring, is what I'm getting up to. But the tone ring that you've got with your banjo, you're stuck with it. The other variables I've told you about already, okay? That's it in general. Tuning pegs can be a problem for you new beginners, because cheaper banjos don't come with good quality tuning pegs. And sometimes the string will not sit on the note on your tuner accurately. And as beginners, you think it should. If it's a G, then it should be green, and it should have two greens either side of the big green with a G on it, else my banjo is crap. Basically, that's not the case, because these electronic tuners suffer from lag. They're electronic. They have to receive the signal from the string, dissect it, think about it, and give you the answer back. So they're not that accurate, they're not instant. Normally when you've got a tuning problem, this is the problem, the nut. You know why? Because your string sticks in it. Right? So you can tune perfectly on the tuner, and then get your fingers and press the string down and it'll be out. Because it sticks in the nut. Manufactured banjos come with one string on it, whether it's Didario or whatever they sell it with. And all of the nuts in the factory have been cut for that string. You get it home and you put your favourite elixirs on it, and they're a different gauge, and they're bind straight into the slot in the nut because they're different, and they won't move. And that's what gives you a lot of problem. So the thing you've got to do then is loosen the string off and put some pencil lead in there. That's all you've got to do. Just run the pencil inside each one and leave some of the graphite in there. Run your string up 2 or 3 times and you'll be okay. If it persists, go and see somebody and just take the nut out a little bit. Do not do it yourself, because if you lower that slot down, you're going to end up buzzing everywhere. But don't blame your tuners, is what I'm saying. The tuners are usually pretty good, even on the cheaper banjos, Shaler tuners. If you were to go and buy a set, you're still looking at 80 quid, 90 quid. So they're not bad. Leave it at that. If you have an old banjo that Grandad used to have, and many of us have got that, you'll probably find they've got a little worm gear on the back of them with a small button like a mandolin-sized tuner, really. Chuck them off. They need to come off, because they will not help you in any way, shape or form to stay in tune too badly, too well. They're all the variables covered now, gentlemen. Is everybody happy with that? That's the things to look for to get you